Hi guys, my name is Dylan, 17 years old from Vermont, USA. I am currently studying at the local high school and of course live with my parents. We moved into our current home more than 10 years ago, when my father changed his job and I had to change my school. I quite like the landscape and location of this house. Even though it is in a rather remote and sparsely populated area, all the neighbors were nice and friendly. I was especially close to Christina, my neighbor. Well, to say I have a good relationship with Christina is not entirely true. We used to be very close, but 1 year ago we had many conflicts. In my opinion, these are all the trivialities of school and teenage issues. But, girls tend to hold on to their anger, and so does Christina. From the little things that accumulated, over the past 1 month we have cut all communications, even though Christina's house is only a wall away from me. Regarding the problems between me and Christina, I don't know where to start because they are so small. Christina is a hyperactive and a bit quirky girl. She and her family were the ones who lived the longest in our neighborhood, but Christina didn't have any friends in the neighborhood. The first day I moved in, I was deeply impressed with this friend's unblinking look and strange smile for me. When my family and I finished moving the furniture inside, Christina came over, knocked on the door, and asked to be friends with me. My parents were so glad that as soon as I arrived, I made such a good impression that I found a friend just like that. I didn't feel a problem with Christina's bold actions, so I happily accepted. Just like that, we grew up together in that neighborhood and it's been 10 years now. We went to the same school, although not in the same class. We always waited for each other to walk home. Christina has always had the same hobbies as me. Even though I'm a girl, she often followed me up the hills near my house to catch insects or play fantasy war games. If I wanted to join my male friends to play sports like soccer or baseball, Christina also had to get a place in the team and compete with other boys. Many male friends teased that Christina and I were a couple. I was embarrassed, so I screamed at them that I didn't like Christina. I was too young back then, so I wasn't sensitive enough to notice Christina's feelings when I said those words in her presence. I only know that I became a friend with Christina because I found her pitiful. Fast forward to the present. We are in high school now, and Christina and I are still very close. She is like a little sister to me that I need to pay attention to. But over time, Christina showed her unreasonable jealousy, which annoyed me a lot. She became jealous of my male friends if I went out with them without letting her join. Every time like that, Christina would quietly follow me and appear at the most unexpected moment, embarrassing me in front of my friends. If she couldn't follow, she would get angry, throw a tantrum on the way home like a crazy girl, making me very awkward when facing the outsiders, especially our parents. But almost 2 months ago, Christina's attitude has changed 180 degrees. She did not act angrily on the walk home with me anymore, but suddenly appeared mysterious and scary. I tried to ignore her as punishment for her bad attitude, but eventually had to give in and asked what was going on with her. As if having waited for me to ask for a long time, Christina took that opportunity to talk relentlessly about the bizarre things she saw recently. She said that she had frequent nightmares and was obsessed with evil things of all kinds. There were many nights when she even heard noises outside the window, which woke her up from her sleep and kept her up all night. Christina told these things with her unblinking eyes and an expressionless and inexplicable smile like the day we first met. That look made me shiver. After trying to reassure her that those crazy things were only in her head, but only causing Christina to become more frustrated and insane, I actively ignored her and spent more time with my male friends. Fortunately, Christina also let me go and our relationship ended. To be honest, what Christina said on those last few days has haunted me, making me even warier. The reason is that my house and her house are right next to each other. If there are real ghosts, they will come to me sooner or later. But when I calmed down, I told myself maybe Christina had psychological problems and imagined things like that in her mind. There's no way ghosts and devils can be real. However, I gradually felt more hesitant every time I looked out the window at night before going to bed. For the past week or so, I've been continuously hearing strange knocking sounds coming from my bedroom window, always making me wake up in the middle of the night. At first, I just thought winter was coming to Vermont, and tree branches were blown against the wall by the wind, making that sound. But they were rhythmic and repetitive, which gave me chills. Everything repeated for a week, causing me to start thinking about the devil stories that Christina told. Are they coming for me? Last night, when that knocking sound happened again in the middle of the night, I couldn't suppress my curiosity anymore. So despite my fear, I got up from bed to check what on earth was making the sounds. My God! I swear to God I wish I hadn't pulled my bedroom curtain to look outside, because what waited outside the window was terrifying and beyond my imagination. The moment I pulled out that curtain, a little girl was glaring at my window. But that girl didn't look as cheerful as you might imagine. She is truly a pure devil. It was dark outside, but the street lights were bright enough that I could see some of her features. Her face was covered with black hair, so I couldn't see her expression clearly. But her skin looked pale as if she had been dead for a while, and her clothes were white as if she were wearing a wedding dress or nightgown. I stood frozen, unable to move until she started to move her hands. I watched her in horror and feared to think about what was going to happen. Even though there was a glass between me and the girl, my entire body froze in that instant, like I was paralyzed and unable to move. Even though I'm a boy, I cried loudly. All of the thoughts about how I would escape if I fell into this situation every time I watched a horror movie suddenly went blank. Instead of trying to touch me, she brought her hand closer to her face until she lifted her hair and revealed her face. What I saw then frightened me even more. She had menacing eyes darker than the night itself, a big smiling stitched up mouth that looked it reached from ear to ear, and her face looked so pale and wrinkly as if she'd been dead for a long time. Too scared, I couldn't react before she started to bang her hands on the window frantically while still staring at me with a menacing and cruel look. What the hell? I fell to the floor, shouted, and cried, but the female demon remained there and showed even more delight by repeatedly slamming her hand against the window. Thankfully, my dad heard the screams, so he ran upstairs to check on me. The demon was briefly stunned when she saw my father enter the room, but she was not scared. Instead, she laughed even more. Unlike me, a coward, my dad rushed in. I opened the window and reached out to grab the female demon's shirt and pulled it in. Witnessing that scene, I immediately passed out. I regained consciousness the next morning, still in shock, but my dad stayed by and reassured me. Without looking panicked, my dad calmly explained that damn demon was actually Christina. That damn little girl confessed everything to my dad, that she hated me because I didn't care about her as much as before, so she planned to retaliate against me. Every night she spent time dressing up in different styles and climbed over to my window to scare me. The stubbornness and hatred in her paid off when I curiously opened the curtains last night. My dad brought her home and had a serious talk with her parents, but her wry smile still made my dad very worried. One thing I learned from the story is never to look out of your window at midnight. But what should I do with this crazy girl Christina, guys? I will lose sleep over what had happened, for sure. Then I'd still have to face her at school. What do you think I should do? Please help me.